Vietnam was never only a story of soldiers moving through jungle shadows. It was also the story of machines fighting a losing battle against mud, heat, rust, and ambush at every turn. Beneath the canopy, where roads dissolved into rivers of brown sludge and the enemy could vanish in seconds, American ground vehicles became both lifeline and liability. Steel, aluminum, rubber, and roaring engines defined how the war was fought on land. At the heart of American armored power stood the M48A3 Patton, the primary main battle tank deployed by United States forces. Built like a moving fortress, its thick armor plating and formidable 90mm gun made it one of the most feared vehicles in the Jungle War. Though designed for open battlefields, it was forced into narrow trails and dense vegetation where visibility was limited and threats could emerge at point-blank range. Infantry units depended on it during heavy firefights, using its bulk and firepower as moving cover against entrenched enemy positions. Before it, the M48A2C variant had already seen service. This earlier model relied on a gasoline engine and was used extensively by South Vietnamese forces. In the early years of the conflict, it played a critical role in armored operations, even though its engine type made it more vulnerable to fire in a war where every hit mattered. One of the most terrifying adaptations of the Patton chassis was the M67, better known as the Zippo. In place of a traditional main gun, this vehicle carried a flamethrower capable of projecting a continuous stream of fire. It was designed for a brutal purpose, clearing bunkers, tunnels, and thick vegetation where enemy fighters hid. Its presence alone carried psychological weight, and when used, it turned the jungle itself into a weapon. Not far removed in concept but entirely different in execution was the M551 Sheridan. This airborne light tank was engineered to be dropped from aircraft, a bold idea that matched the mobility demands of the war. Armed with a massive 152mm gun launcher, it delivered serious firepower from a surprisingly light platform. Its aluminum hull worried many crews who knew it could not absorb punishment like heavier tanks, but its speed and fire support made it valuable in fast-moving operations. Lighter still was the M41 Walker Bulldog, a nimble tank that earned the respect of its crews. Highly mobile and responsive, it proved effective against enemy armor when operated by trained hands. It saw extensive service with the South Vietnamese Army and performed well in the varied terrain of the country. Before it, the M24 Chaffee, a veteran of the Second World War, had appeared briefly in the conflict. Though outdated, it filled gaps in the early period before newer designs fully replaced it. Among the strangest vehicles to roll through Vietnam was the M50 Ontos. Compact and almost bizarre in appearance, it carried 6 recoilless rifles mounted on its hull. In the hands of the Marine Corps, it became a devastating tool for clearing enemy positions. Its firepower was overwhelming at close range, and it proved especially effective during intense urban and jungle fighting, including the brutal battle for Hue City. Equally unusual was the M56 Scorpion, an unarmored self-propelled gun that seemed fragile at first glance. Despite its exposed design, its 90mm cannon packed a serious punch. Light enough to be transported by air, it brought heavy firepower to places that would otherwise be unreachable. Armor alone could not fight the war. Moving soldiers safely through hostile territory was just as important, and no vehicle defined that role more than the M113 armored personnel carrier. Often described as an aluminum box on tracks, it became the most widely used armored vehicle of the conflict. It carried troops into battle while offering protection from small arms fire and shrapnel. An improved version, the M113A1, replaced the gasoline engine with a diesel power plant, increasing reliability and reducing the risk of catastrophic fires. This change made it far better suited for long missions deep into contested areas. The M113 platform spawned numerous variants. The Armored Cavalry Assault Vehicle, known as the ACAV, added extra machine guns and protective gun shields, transforming a basic transport into a deadly assault platform capable of delivering massive suppressive fire. The M132 Zippo adapted the carrier into a flamethrower vehicle, complete with large fuel tanks. It was used to flush out enemy fighters hiding in dense brush, where conventional weapons were less effective. Fire support also came from mortar carriers like the M106, which housed a heavy 4.2-inch mortar inside an armored hull, allowing crews to fire indirectly while remaining protected. The smaller M125 variant carried an 81mm mortar and provided fast, mobile indirect fire for units on the move. Command and control were just as critical as firepower. The M577, recognizable by its high roof, served as a mobile command post. Packed with radios, maps, and planning equipment, it allowed officers to direct operations while staying close to the front lines. Not every design succeeded. The M114 Scout vehicle, intended for reconnaissance, struggled badly in deep mud and flooded rice paddies. Its limitations led to its eventual replacement by more capable machines. On roads and supply routes, wheeled armored vehicles played a vital role. The V-100 Commando, a four-wheeled armored car, was designed for convoy escort. Its speed and visibility made it ideal for protecting supply lines against sudden ambushes. Older designs also lingered. The M3 half-track, a classic from the Second World War, was still used by support units and South Vietnamese forces in the early years. The M8 Greyhound, a six-wheeled armored car, found use in internal security roles, guarding air bases and key installations rather than venturing deep into the jungle. Beyond armor, the war depended heavily on light utility vehicles. The M151 MWAT replaced the legendary Jeep as the standard utility vehicle. Lightweight and versatile, it was everywhere, though its unique suspension made it challenging to handle at high speeds. The M151A1 introduced minor improvements to improve safety, particularly during sharp turns. Specialized versions followed, including the M151A1C, which carried a 106mm recoilless rifle. This modification turned the small vehicle into a fast and deadly tank hunter. Another variant mounted heavy anti-tank missiles, giving light units the ability to engage armored threats from long distances with surprising precision. Older Jeeps, like the M38A1, remained in service during the early phase of the war. Rugged and simple, they laid the groundwork for newer designs. The Marine Corps even fielded the M422 Mighty Might, a tiny aluminum Jeep light enough to be carried by early helicopters. For hauling supplies through narrow jungle trails, the M274 mechanical mule became indispensable. Essentially, a flat platform on four wheels, it carried ammunition, food, and weapons where trucks could not go. More ambitious designs attempted to conquer the terrain in different ways. The M561 Gamma Goat featured a jointed, six-wheeled body designed to handle extreme conditions. It could traverse mud, water, and uneven ground, though it was notoriously loud and difficult to operate. Logistics depended on trucks like the M35, a 2.5-ton workhorse known as the Deuce and a Half. It became the backbone of supply convoys and one of the most common sights on Vietnamese roads. Larger still was the M54 5-ton truck, capable of hauling massive loads of ammunition, fuel, and equipment across miserable terrain. Between these extremes sat vehicles like the M37 3/4-ton truck, which filled the gap between light jeeps and heavy haulers. The M715, a heavy-duty pickup based on a civilian design, served as a light cargo and personnel vehicle toughened for military use. For truly massive loads, the M123 10-ton tractor truck hauled heavy trailers carrying tanks and oversized equipment across long distances. The M520 Goer took a different approach, using an articulated design that allowed it to move through deep mud and even swim, reaching remote fire bases inaccessible to conventional trucks. Artillery followed the troops, bringing destructive power from afar. The M107 self-propelled gun featured an exceptionally long barrel and could fire shells over great distances, supporting ground units while remaining far from danger. Sharing its chassis was the M110, a heavy howitzer firing massive 8-inch shells capable of destroying fortified positions with a single hit. Lighter artillery came from the M108, which provided quick fire support before being replaced by more capable systems. The M109 became the standard medium self-propelled howitzer. Its armored turret and 155mm gun delivering reliable long-range support. Air defense vehicles often found deadly new roles. The M42 Duster, armed with twin 40mm guns, was designed to shoot down aircraft, but proved devastating against ground targets. The M163 Vulcan mounted a rapid-firing Gatling gun on a tracked chassis, unleashing torrents of bullets that suppressed enemy positions with terrifying effectiveness. For convoy defense, the M55 Quad 50 mounted 4 heavy machine guns together, creating a wall of fire against ambushes. Keeping all of these machines running required constant recovery and engineering support. The M88 recovery vehicle served as the heavy lifter, towing damaged tanks out of danger under fire. Even larger was the M51 heavy recovery vehicle, used for the most difficult salvage jobs imaginable. The M578 light recovery vehicle, equipped with a rotating crane, handled smaller repairs and engine lifts directly in the field. Combat engineers relied on the M728, a modified tank with a short gun and crane, to clear obstacles and destroy bunkers. Bulldozers like the Caterpillar D7E Rome plow carved wide scars through the jungle, denying the enemy cover and hiding places. Armored vehicle launched bridges allowed units to cross rivers and ditches without slowing their advance. Amphibious operations added another layer of complexity. The LVTP-5 amphibious tractor carried Marines from ships to shore and deep inland. Its fire support counterpart, the LVTH-6, mounted a large howitzer to protect landing forces. Massive amphibious cargo vehicles like the Larcy LX moved enormous loads from sea to land, while the smaller Lark 5 handled day-to-day supply operations. Tracked cargo carriers such as the M548 brought ammunition through mud, where wheeled vehicles would fail. Support vehicles kept the war machine alive. Mobile shop vans repaired electronics in the field. Fuel tankers fed endless engines, and ambulances evacuated the wounded under fire. Forklifts unloaded mountains of supplies at ports. Motorcycles carried messages, and small tracked carriers floated across mud that swallowed everything else. Together, these machines formed a vast, grinding system. In Vietnam, victory and survival depended not just on soldiers, but on the relentless endurance of the vehicles that carried them into the unknown.